Harambee! Neno hili si hivyo. Mambo ni matatu.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome back to our channel once again. James Orengo was on Spice FM, and James Orengo said a lot of things.
President Ruto is cut from the same, cloth like most of the original dictators in Africa. It's just that we have a good constitution. But left on his own without a document like the constitution we have, I think his tendencies and inclinations is to have an imperial type of presidency.
But there's something which James Orengo said during that interview that caught my attention. James Orengo alleged that Raila Odinga was actually forced to go to India.
What could be a forward-thinking way when it comes to the position that the party has taken? It started with a suggestion from you at some point, and then became an allusion. And then, after that, it became what you were convicted that something beyond a natural death happened to Raila Odinga, and that somebody killed him. You've said this not once. You've said this several times. Why would you say this?
Well, I say this with a heavy heart, and I must be sensitive to the feelings of the family. So I will not say as much as I think I should say. At an appropriate time, I'll try to talk about it a little louder. But I'm saying, if you look at the circumstances in which Raila was evacuated from Kenya, he didn't go to India willingly. I think he was almost, forced to go to India and to a particular institutions with a company of certain individuals who I have a lot of questions to raise about them. And, we don't have a post-mortem report now. But looking at all the elements Raila had, which were in the public domain, the ones which are in the public domain, it's quite clear that, what caused his death had nothing to do with the elements that he had. So I believe that there was some intervention, and if a proper inquiry is held and established, the truth will come out. Now, I say this because I was in the case, the inquest for my friend George Captain. I was in the, I was a family doctor for Mutula Kilonzo Senior. I was in the Ouko murder trial. And sometimes even when professionals tell you that this is what happened, it requires verification. Ouko, when he died, somebody suggested, and these were government people, that he committed suicide and then burnt himself.
Right.
I was in the Julie Ward trial. Again, one of those murders that if one didn't go into verification of what actually happened, it had been dismissed to a situation where government was saying that she must have been killed by wild animals. So we are quite, the nation is being put to slumber to accept the death of Raila as natural. But I'm saying that we need to look into it.
That's James Orengo. And if you listened and paid very close attention, there are certain things which Orengo is saying there which are actually shocking. James Orengo is not only saying that Raila Odinga was forced to go to India, but he was also forced to go to a particular institution where he died. Remember, Raila Odinga died in some very funny facility. James Orengo is alleging that Raila Odinga was actually forced to that institution. And importantly, James Orengo is also suggesting that Raila Odinga was in the company of individuals whose characters are being questioned. Who are these people? I want to assume that James Orengo is making reference to none other than Okech Sala.
Winnie, do you know Okech Sala?
I've met him. But I'd like to believe nobody really knows him. I also feel sad for him. You know, my father died, and that was a very traumatic experience for me. But at least he died with somebody he knew loved him. And I believe people need to take better care of their loved ones. And mental health is a really important thing. When you live here and you go on Thika Road, there are two options. You either turn right as you're going to Mathare, or you turn left and you're going to DCI. Because a flat-out lie that you were there at the time of my father's death and you were not, talking things that did not occur, is quite dangerous. It makes me question a lot of things. What would be those intentions? So I believe they're just two places that should be rushed with immediate effect, one or the other.
Na huyu kijana wetu Okech Sala, yeye ndio rafiki, alikuwa rafiki tena mtoto ya Raila, ya karibu sana. Walikuwa pamoja hapa Kenya, walikuwa pamoja Dubai, walikuwa pamoja India, mpaka yeye aliniwacha akienda India kwenda kutendea Raila maisha yake, hii kuangalia kila kitu. Yeye ndiye alikuwa anaangalia kila kitu ya Raila mpaka siku ya mwisho Raila akaenda. Sasa vile Raila ameenda, mimi sasa ninachukua yeye kama mtoto yangu. Nina inherit yeye kama mtoto yangu, na tutakuwa tunafanya kazi pamoja. Raila ametuacha ndani ya serikali.
And James Orengo is also concluding that so far no post-mortem has been conducted. And James Orengo is concluding that currently there is no post-mortem report, and therefore an inquest or an inquiry should be conducted on the death of Raila Odinga. I want us to talk about the statement by James Orengo and probably what it was intended to achieve. Before we do that, in case you are watching this channel for the first time, please take a second or two, press that subscribe button. Ladies and gentlemen, was Raila Odinga's death natural, or was it caused by human being? I'm asking that question because today, Joanna Ngeno was laid to rest. He died through an accident, and questions as to whether that accident was by design or it was just a natural accident has been one of the questions which Kenyans have been asking. So the question is, who wanted Raila Odinga dead and why? Who would have benefited, or who is the biggest beneficiary following the death of Raila Odinga? Maybe that's something we should figure out how to analyze, maybe in our subsequent videos, but I don't think it would be fair to analyze that. But let us focus on James Orengo's statement. And I want to ask a few questions. The first question I want to ask, who accompanied Raila Odinga to India? Because James Orengo is suggesting that Raila Odinga was accompanied to India by some questionable characters. I know his personal doctor was in India with him. His bodyguard, Ogeta, was with him, and when he collapsed, Ogeta was right behind him. When Raila Odinga died, we saw the photos of Winnie Odinga and the sister, Ruth Odinga. So is it possible that Raila family were involved? Or who is James Orengo making reference to? Because we all know that there's a way Raila Odinga loved the Indian traditional medicine. And I think this is informed by the fact that at least they saved Rosie. And Raila Odinga would never, and Raila Odinga would never hesitate to recommend them. So, who accompanied Raila Odinga to India? Maybe if you know the list, please let me know. Number two, the fact that James Orengo is suggesting that Raila Odinga was forced. The question is, who paid for the trip? Because I remember at some point, Okechsala responded to Ruth Odinga that, you know, as much as you are saying this, I paid for your trip to India. Business class. Who paid for Raila Odinga's trip? And who cleared his medical expenses there? Is it possible that the government of Kenya paid and Orengo has this information, and because of that, he's talking the way he's talking? I don't know, but I'm just asking that question. And the other important question is, what was Orengo's role to Raila before he went to India? Because I remember at some point, someone told me that, you know, Orengo, Raila, and a few friends used to drink. In fact, that after Raila Odinga lost, he used to drink a lot with Orengo and his friends. Is it possible that Raila told Orengo a few things, and that's why Orengo is talking the way he's been talking? Or is it possible that the fact that Orengo used to drink with him, while it's a known fact that Raila Odinga was sick, probably is the reason why his health went down the way it did? So those are the questions. Because the truth is, Raila was sick. Those who know will tell you that during COVID, Raila Odinga was very sick. Very, very sick. But he survived it. Yeah. So, how was Raila's relationship with Orengo? Or what role was Orengo playing around Raila Odinga before he passed on? Especially after he became the governor. Were they that close? That one I doubt. Because if Orengo and Raila were very close, probably Orengo would have served as the ODM chairperson, not Gladys Wanga. Or he would have even acted as the party leader instead of Professor Peter Anyang'o. And again, there's a question. Was Orengo really an insider around Raila Odinga before he passed on? Because I've studied Raila Odinga. Someone like Professor Anyang'o was very close to Raila Odinga. Raila Odinga listened to him a lot. But Raila Odinga deliberately sent Nyong'o to Kisumu so that he could have some space in Nairobi. He did the same again 5 years later to James Orengo. He sent Orengo to the village. Maybe because he wanted a breather. He wanted new people around him. So, was Orengo really an insider around Raila? Maybe yes, maybe not. But who wanted Raila Odinga out? I want to assume that Orengo is making reference to William Ruto. Let us ask ourselves the question: who benefits with the absence of Raila? Who benefits? Let me read your comments. Because for me, William Ruto would have wanted a situation where Raila Odinga was alive. And then Raila Odinga was going to support him. Yeah? But again, some can argue, rightfully, that William Ruto's fear was that if Raila Odinga was alive, he would have been on the ballot. Yeah? And maybe that's why people like Sifuna, people like Babu have a field day. Because Raila Odinga supporters believe up to now that Raila Odinga actually won in the last election. So in the comment section, let me read what you think about who would have benefited the most following the death of Raila Odinga. Let me give you my thoughts. My thoughts are that the death of Raila Odinga has caused serious political offense. I doubt if there's a single individual who is going to benefit from it. Ruto is not going to benefit. Sifuna is not going to benefit. People like Junet, people like Evan Mbadi, Gladys, all of them are not going to benefit from the death of Raila Odinga. None. They are affected in a very big way because Raila Odinga was bigger than ODM. He was bigger than probably Kenya. Let me see what you think. Until next time, this is Makwiny. Bye-bye.